And in that moment of absolute rock bottom, my hand did what it was trained to do. It reached for my phone for the sweet, numbing escape of the scroll. My thumb, acting on its own, opened Instagram, and there she was, Serena. She had a new post. It was a photo of her sitting on a pristine white sofa reading a book. One of her perfectly dressed children was asleep on her lap. The caption read, "A quiet moment of peace in a busy day, feeling so grateful." I looked at the photo. Then I looked around my own kitchen. The flour-dusted floor, the brown sludge on the counter. I looked at my own child, Leo, who was now crying because I was crying. The contrast was so absurd, so profoundly dishonest, it was almost funny. And a new feeling cut through my despair: rage. A clean, clarifying anger. Anger at Serena. Anger at the fantasy she sold. And anger at myself for ever believing it. For ever thinking that her life had anything to do with mine. My thumb, which had scrolled her feed so devotedly for months, moved with a new purpose. I went to her profile. Her perfect grid of beige and white perfection stared back at me, and with a single, decisive tap, I did the one thing I had been too afraid to do. I hit the unfollow button. It was more than just an unfollow. It was a declaration of independence. In my head, I wasn't just unfollowing, I was deleting the perfect mom. I was deleting the impossible standard. I was deleting the ghost that had been haunting my motherhood. I put my phone down, face down on the floor. I took a deep, shuddering breath. The screaming had stopped. I looked up and saw Leo standing in front of me, his face a mess of tears and dough. He looked at me, his little brow furrowed with concern, and then he did something that wasn't in any of Serena's reels. He toddled over, his sticky hands reaching for my face. He gently patted my tear-soaked cheek, leaving a little brown handprint. And then he leaned in and gave me a wet, sloppy, dough-flavored kiss. And in that moment, I started to laugh. A real, guttural laugh through the tears. This was it. This was the beautiful moment. Not the curated, perfect, silent one from the photo, but this one. This sticky, messy, chaotic, and profoundly real moment of connection with my son. It was 1,000 times more magical than any beige-filtered fantasy. We didn't finish the project. We just sat on the floor and made a bigger mess, smearing the dough on paper, on our faces, laughing together. I wasn't Serena, and thank God for that. I was Leo's mom, and my messy, imperfect, beautiful life was finally my own again. That day, I didn't just delete an influencer. I deleted the pressure to be anyone other than the mother my child already loved. If you've ever found yourself drowning in the sea of social media perfection, know this. Your messy kitchen, your screaming toddler, your own tears. That is the real, authentic, and beautiful story of motherhood. And you are doing an amazing job. What's one perfect thing you felt pressured to do as a mom? Let's talk about the reality in the comments. And if this story resonated, you can watch our story about what happens when that pressure comes from your own family by clicking the video on your screen now. The next afternoon, I set the stage. I cleared the kitchen counter, laid out a clean linen cloth, and arranged the ingredients in little ceramic bowls, just like Serena did. I called Leo into the kitchen, my heart filled with a hopeful, nervous energy. "Want to do a fun project with Mommy?" I asked, my voice a forced imitation of Serena's gentle chirp. Leo, a glorious and chaotic force of nature, took one look at my carefully arranged setup and saw only one thing: opportunity. The simple mixing part of the reel, which took Serena and her daughter a calm 30 seconds, took us 10 minutes. Leo plunged his hands into the flour with such enthusiasm that a white cloud erupted, coating him, me, and a 2-meter radius of the kitchen in a fine layer of dust. My eyes started to twitch, but I smiled, chanting Serena's mantra in my head. Embrace the beautiful chaos. Embrace the beautiful chaos. Next came the natural food coloring. I had bought muted shades of sage green and dusty rose. Leo, however, had other ideas. He grabbed both bottles and squeezed their entire contents into the bowl at once. The beautiful, aesthetic colors instantly swirled into a hideous, unappealing shade of brownish-purple sludge. "No, honey, just a few drops," I said, my voice a little tighter this time. He just giggled, plunging his hands into the sludge and smearing it across the linen cloth. "The chaos is beautiful," I told myself, my teeth clenched. The reel had shown Serena's daughter delicately rolling out the dough and using a star-shaped cookie cutter. Leo had no interest in the star. He used the wooden rolling pin as a hammer, banging it on the counter while yelling like a tiny Viking. He ripped off a piece of the brown dough and, before I could stop him, shoved it into his mouth. I lunged, prying the salty, uncooked dough from his mouth as he started to wail. He was sticky, I was sticky, the kitchen looked like a bomb had gone off in a bakery, and there was no beautiful memory being made. There was just this: flour in my hair, a sticky brown-purple mess sliming my counter, and a toddler screaming at the top of his lungs because I wouldn't let him eat raw dough. And that's when I broke. I wasn't angry at him. I was angry at the lie that motherhood could be simple and clean and beige. The lie that my beautiful, chaotic, very real child was supposed to act like a serene prop in a perfectly curated photograph. The frustration and failure of the last hour, of the last few months, all came crashing down on me. I slid down the kitchen cabinets, my back hitting the floor with a thud, and I just sat there, in the middle of the flour and the goo, and I cried. Not quiet, gentle tears like Serena would have. Ugly, gasping sobs of a woman who felt like a complete and utter failure. My toddler was screaming, my house was a mess, and I was crying. My toddler was screaming, my house was a mess, and I was crying. That's when I opened Instagram and deleted the perfect mom. But she wasn't a real person. Not to me, anyway. She was a ghost, a fantasy, an impossible standard that had been silently poisoning my motherhood for months. Her name, or at least her handle, was @SimplySerena. Our relationship began in the quiet, lonely hours of the night. My son, Leo, was a terrible sleeper, and I'd spend hours in the dark, rocking him, my body aching with a fatigue so deep it felt like it was in my bones. My phone was my only escape, and that's where I found her. Serena's world was a universe away from mine. My world was a chaotic symphony of colorful plastic toys, spit up on every shirt, and a sink perpetually full of bottles. Her world was a minimalist dreamscape of beige linen, handcrafted wooden toys, and pristine white kitchens. Her 2 children, always dressed in matching neutral-toned outfits, never seemed to cry. They engaged in sensory activities, they ate artfully arranged organic snacks, and they smiled serene, angelic smiles for the camera. Her captions were filled with phrases like, "savoring the simple moments," and "embracing the beautiful chaos." But there was no chaos in her pictures. There was only beauty. I became addicted. Every night I would scroll, comparing her curated piece to my messy reality. And with every post, I felt a fresh wave of failure. Why wasn't my chaos beautiful? Why were my moments filled with stress, not serenity? I didn't just follow Serena. I studied her, believing that if I could just decode her methods, I could unlock her magic. I could become a good mom like her. The breaking point was a reel she posted on a Tuesday. It was a simple 10-minute toddler activity, she called it. In the video, Serena and her perfectly calm daughter were making homemade, naturally colored Play-Doh. The lighting was golden, the music was gentle, and the process looked effortless, even magical. At the end, her daughter held up a perfectly formed, beautiful clay star, and the caption read, "Making memories is the best ingredient." I had just spent the entire day battling a tantruming Leo. I felt touched out, exhausted, and completely defeated. Serena's reel felt like a lifeline. It was a roadmap. This, I thought, this is what I'm missing. A simple, beautiful activity. This will connect us. This will make me a better mother. I watched it 6 more times, memorizing every step. The next day, I would not be the stressed, yelling mom. I would be Serena. My son and I would make beautiful memories. I went to the store and bought organic flour, all natural food dyes in muted aesthetic colors, and a small wooden rolling pin just like hers. I was ready. I was going to be the perfect mom.